morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of HR Voices that is conducted by BW People. And today we have a stalwart with us, Mr. P. Dwarkanath, who is the former chairperson for GSK Consumer Healthcare. And not, I don't have too many words to explain the kind of persona that he holds and the contributions that he has made over a period of time. He is one of the leaders that we have grown up watching and has inspired almost every leader who has been into HR and aspires to hold the top and the pinnacles position in the corporates. So we would like to welcome Mr. Dwarkanath on board with us. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So as we have discussed that we'll be talking about HR leadership and strategies to build agile and resilient organizations. So I'd like to hand over this stage to you. And once that's through, we'll again have a brief discussion around it. Thank you, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your generous introduction. And thank you for giving this opportunity to express my comments and few observations on HR and leadership. And I always go to Businessworld for giving this sort of encouragement to all of us, especially to HR fraternity. To start with, sir, I would like to start with a few words which has got an impact. We are talking about leadership and strategies and how HR can play a key role in this turbulent times, what you call the Barney world or otherwise. For me, I have not changed my name. I have not changed my profession, though I worked in different arenas of corporate world, but my focus was on people. But my company, which I associated with more than 4 decades, has changed its name 5 times. I think what I want to say in this context is the whole world is changing very fast. And especially if you see from 2007 to 2022, the last 5 years, the level of macroeconomics, social, geopolitical, climate, and technological disruptions increased by 200%. That is this is based on the data given by the Accenture very recently at the World Economic Forum. What it also means is, in today's world, the tight labor market, a talent shortage continues beyond the pandemic, and skill gaps remain at high levels. I think so. When you say about it, technology is changing very fast. There are other geopolitical situations which is also creating. But ultimately, to make a sustainable and develop a growth-oriented organization, the fact remains that while you need the technology, you need the data, you need the financial resources, but the most important aspect remains people, right kind of people. I'm tempted to quote, with your permission, as a very famous quote of Richard Dupree, of former president of P&G. He said, if you can take away my money, take away my buildings, take away my brands, but leave my people, I will rebuild this organization in a decade. This he has stated in 1947 or 8. After 74 years, it remains true, despite all these technological disruptions, geopolitical conflicts, macroeconomic situations. So it goes without saying how people, right kind of people, can make a difference, significant difference in developing and growing an organization. So just to build on it, so what is the view of a CEO? What sort of a need he requires to make this happen? I think one of the things I see personally today, if you see, CHRO is a growth executive. I think when we started the careers for many years, they used to be say, what does HR do? HR used to do hatch, patch, and dispatch. What does it mean? I think, this was as the story goes, one of the church visitors has asked the priest, he said, what do you do? I said, I bless the child when he's born. and I also solemnize the young couple's marriage. And if dies, I will perform the rituals. So HR used to hire, develop, and then also manage the exits. But in today's world, it has gone much beyond this. In my 50 years, what shifts I have seen in last 10 years, especially in last 5 years, is phenomenal. So what does it mean? You need to be agile, and you need to understand the situation not only inside your organization, but also in the outside in view approach needs to be adopted. It's not only confined to India. This is a boundaryless management. Then there are only borders or boundaries for the sake of political reasons, but otherwise it's a globe is a village today and the world is flat. I mean, that proves very clearly in today's world. So then if you move on from there, how does it HR can play an important role in making this to justify the role of growth executives? I think if you see it from that angle, uh, uh, basically, I think the researchers, which is done by Accenture for 570 executives, CHROs and CEOs, have again re-established one aspect. This is not something new has just happened. We had realized this even 2 decades back when I was working with GSK. There was a famous book written by Jim Collins, Good to Great. And what does it mean? What business we are in? And from there is a paradigm shift has happened in the sense that leadership capabilities need to be developed and nurtured, not for the present, even for the future. And there is a need to be an inclusive culture, which need to embrace. And then we need to create an employer brand, which can serve as a foundation for a sustainable business. This has been said about 20 years, 25 years back. But we never at that time realized that this needs to be focused in a different fashion after the last 5 years, because as I said, there is a talent gap. Fortunately for India, we have 2 distinct advantages. The first advantage, if I say, is demographic dividend. We have a great youth power in India, and we are in the right place at the right time. And number 2, if I have to say, the biggest strength of India is IT. When I said IT, is the Indian talent. So this is where talent plays an important role in making this any organization growth oriented and sustainable for the current and for the future. So this is what I would say. What are the 5 key factors which we need to focus on this? I think it's interesting said, focusing on the power of data, tech, people, and when we're talking about and sustainability, and also in terms of enterprise reinvention. So what does it mean? If you want to be competitive in the current world and want to have a long-term strategy to make this sustainable, it is important that you need to focus on these 5 key factors. When you're talking about how do you reinvent the enterprise, when you want talking about reinvent the enterprise, there are 2 key factors which will come: the data and how do you transfer every part of your business in terms of technology, AI, new ways of working. But this itself will not take you to that level of a great organization. It is important there you need to have the key talent and embrace the opportunities to acquire and nurture the talent on an ongoing basis. This is where HR, with their experience, able to drive the business with the right kind of data, with the technology, and along with the people. So just to give you an instance where, if you can see, there are many challenges we face, but this is not something I'm taking off. This is what my impressions earlier, but is reinforced by these surveys and the research which was done, that HR is in today's world, HR leadership is in the driver's seat. It is therefore important for HR and CEO to align, to bring a a strategy which will drive the business growth. It doesn't mean only two people can do it. This is where the next submission of mine would be: how do the HR brings to the table value to the business? I mean, he said, unless you add value to the business, you may understand the business realities, you may have the knowledge, but do you have the right skills to understand the other people and try to bring a sort of a collaborative approach and connect the people from different functions and areas, make it an organization is without much silos, a single enterprise approach. That is where HR can drive the business agenda with the help of CEO. And in the current context, I think you require the collaboration with every business leader. But I think most importantly in me, the shift has taken place more than from a CFO to CIO and CTO. This is where technology and HR using the data you have to make this happen. If I have to say, to give examples, have we not done before? Many organizations have done. I had the benefit of being involved as an HR person in my career. I used to be involved in every vision or the strategy planning of be it R&D or be it in marketing. And one of the things I would like to illustrate here is there always used to be a conflict between the two functions, because something what designed by the R&D may not be acceptable to marketing. What marketing wants may not be palatable to the R&D. Then how do you make this happen? I think this is where I think HR can play an important role. And it's not that something I've done great, but we realized to connect the important aspects in which there is a conflict, or how we can work it instead of a conflict in a collaborative approach to make it happen. So it is not something HR is related to only in terms of performance management, reward management, or in terms of bringing. They can play a significant role in bringing a cultural change through a transformation process. What I call the agility hacks. It means you can't keep doing what you have done well. I think with the times you need to change. That sort of awareness, only when you do it in a very systemic way, connecting and collaborating with different stakeholders, then only it will be able to happen. So this is this is one of the aspects, which I would like to emphasize, how HR can play to take the example. Merely because you have a technology or a data, it doesn't mean that you're succeeded in the market. In order to create that competitive advantage to the organization, it's important you need to have the right kind of people to drive those transformation changes as and when required. Example, if you take Kodak they are the pioneers divides this film photography, but they were the number one in the world for many years. Similarly, you take Motorola, they are the people who devised the mobile phones. And if you take Nokia, who are devised these smartphones, but where are they today and why they did not survive? It is not that they didn't have a technology, but they didn't have the right kind of people at the right time, be it a CEO, be it a CTO, or be it a CHRO, to drive this to their competitive advantage. This is where they lost. So I just want to bring it to the notice, which everybody knows, what Sony did to Kodak, Apple did to Sony. What does it mean? What you perceive as a competitor today may not be your competitor tomorrow, or you may not foresee a competitor today, but in reality, after a few years, somebody else whom you did not visualize that you will be competitor will be giving a tough competition in terms of the business. For example, if you take this Kodak example, which I keep quoting, which was very relevant when we were also discussing about this earlier. You see, Sony is an entertainment business. Kodak is in photography business. But how can they become a competitors? I think it's not only for the talent competitors, even the technology competition. This can be identified only when you have a right kind of people. Similarly, Sony is an entertainment company. They have, they have, they have thrived on Walkman. But when Apple came, which is an IT company with an iPod, they lost the market. So it's important that you need to have this agility hacks in the sense that you need to bring some innovation, creativity at the right time and bring that collaborative spirit to make things happen, which will feel that, in the market, you are able to grow your business and also sustain. Sometimes you can grow the business for some time, but you may not be able to sustain it when you don't have right kind of systemic thinking connected with the right kind of people. This is where creating accessing and creating a talent to across the organization is important. And when I say talent, unfortunately, we think talent, leadership, we see the only top layers of the management. This is where HR has to educate and induct right kind of interventions to ensure that talent can be at any level of management. And leadership doesn't mean only the top layer, leadership at all levels. That is this sort of a culture and the approach which HR has to take with the help of the CEO. One of the things, if you want to have this, there are only, they said, now the research has reinforced the fact, Accentures and others, there are only 5% of the CHROs who are not only as a growth executives of high resolutions in terms of their approach. They are able to resolve many things because of their understanding of not only of the business and how the future of the work will be, and also in terms of the kind of people they have and how do you bring that sort of an alignment between the business strategy and talent strategy. It's very interesting. I'm not making a tall order. I'm talking what I had experienced. Now it's been reinforced by many findings and surveys which have been done. Even Accenture was quoting in the World Economic Forum today, there are 570 CHROs and CEOs across 12 countries have been identified. What I have just now mentioned based on my experience have been reinforced. What does it mean? It means no doubt that people's strategy should be aligned with the business strategy. That is where CEO sees CHRO as a catalyst. But at the same time, without a proper talent strategy, your business strategy is not complete. I think that's a very strong statement that I'm making, but I still hold good because what we have seen in the recent times, especially in last 3-4 years, even before the pandemic, especially during pandemic and later, because the pace of change is very fast unless you are agile. You understand the whole concept of 4Ws, be it a workplace, which has gone through a lot of change, be it a workers, I mean, gig workers, platform workers, part-time workers, cloud workers, and so on. How do you manage? And thirdly, we are talking about, you're talking about the future of work, which is based on globalization, in terms of consumerization, in terms of technological advancements, and last but the kind of people you need to have, talent, which is a multi-generational workforce. How do you manage with the different strokes with different folks? That is what ultimately sees the HR trying to do a catalyst role as a chief growth executive, coupled with managing intersections, if I can call that collaborative spirit you need to bring in. We are competing with each other for the benefit of the organization. So this is where the change in the mindsets have to be done, sir. Unfortunately, some of the seniors, they think that if they empower the people, these are the enablers. When you do sort of inclusive and collaborative culture, you are empowering people at different levels to take decisions, encourage some element of risk appetite, and also measure them how they're performing. Unfortunately, some of the leadership said, this is the way we've done in the past, we'll continue to do in the future, which is wrong. And secondly, if we empower people, they may not be able to deliver it. This is a lack of trust and credibility. And number three, if you give it, they may misuse it. That could be a downside, but this is where proper counseling, coaching, and mentoring would help to happen. So, if you put all these aspects put together, I think, every situation cannot be predicted. I think, as I said, we moved from hatch, match, dispatch syndrome to more strategic and a collaborative partner to the business, aligning business strategy and talent strategy to get the growth of the business and sustain the business in a long-term basis. It's not just a short-term. But in order to do it, it is not everything is new. Some of them we have not predicted to that extent. It is therefore important that when you are going through a transformation changes, without realizing many changes have happened, some of them with a great personal resilience, we have coped up well. Because one of the aspects here, I would like to say it, I'm very proud of the Indian talent from my experience with GSK, where we have seconded many people to overseas assignments. Some of the jobs are very difficult terrain, be it in African continent, but most of our leaders have come with the flying colors. This is the tribute given even those days by the global leaders, because we could work in any situations, adverse situations, because we had that personal resilience and in a professional will to do well with a great humility. That as personal resilience has helped us. We have witnessed in at least in my generation, next generation, many other adverse challenges which maybe younger generation may not be knowing. This is where when you're working with a national global workforce, where managing millennials versus baby boomers or others, it is not a question of it is a question of adopting and to adapt to the current situations, which is fast changing. So for me, agility with personal resilience and with a focus on the well-being. I think we talked about the workplace, work and nature of workers, but we never focused on the well-being. This is where HR also can play. Well-being doesn't mean only physical well-being, but the mental well-being. If you have a motivated and engaged workforce with good experiences can be adverse or positive or negative, but this will provide that sort of opportunities to grow and experiment it. Then I think we are achieving this through these people's processes and interventions with the right kind of technology, with the adequate data to support it, to take decisions which are based on facts and data and with a rational and judgment. Last, I want to say, ultimately, leadership is nothing but leader is one who can cope up with change. I think, with change is the constant factor. Change needs to be a transformation change in the current context to make it happen. So sometimes what you perceive as a small change can be a big change for the employees. It is there. We need to manage the expectations and communicate to them at the right people. You see, there are many paradigms in today's world. At one stage, we said there is a talent gap, there is shortage of people, right kind of people. At the other stage, we're saying the mass layoffs are happening. So they are, and one side we said there's a moonlighting, which it's a challenge. Other side we said non-compete clauses. So there is I never heard it. Now I started understanding what it is. Quiet quitting or the quick quitting, which were never these syndromes. It's not that they were not there, but they were not put it in a sort of a framework which we are make them people aware. Why we're doing all this? Because the world is changing fast. And if you want to have a competitive advantage, apart from being survival, it's very important that you need to be head of the curve. This is where the 5% of the CHR was, when you have those traits to do, whether systemic thinking with the business knowledge coupled with the leadership skills and a great nurture of the talent. You can give many titles to HR, but I'm not getting into it. What it is, you need to be credible activist to gain the trust of the people. It is not the just positional authority versus it is more a personal credibility, and you have the ability to navigate to different kinds of people, right from a Mali to the Malik of an organization. That means from a gardener to chairman. If you have those sort of navigation skills with a systemic thinking and with focus on talent, I think HR can play a significant role, a catalyst role. I mean, to conclude, I would say in a cricket match, CEO is the umpire who is on the field. But if there is any appeal or any doubt or a controversy, he will refer to third umpire. I think the HR plays that role when you have that sort of maturity, understanding of people, understanding of the business, and understanding of the data and technology. So many people say that because of the technology, a lot of jobs are being laid off and all. But I think there is a way. This is where the learning skills and learning agility which he needs to develop. Learn, relearn, unlearn, and do and again relearn. I think this is a cycle. Unless you create that curiosity to learn, learning agility, we will not be doing it. To conclude, if you don't keep scoring, you're just practicing. One of the challenges in HR when the business leaders or other external stakeholders challenge them, you need to have the data to show how your initiatives, it is not nice to have, but need to have helped the organization and aligning your talent strategies with the business strategies to get the best results, and also create an environment where people feel comfortable and there is an element of collaborative spirit, and we are only working with one purpose to make this organization great. That is where I think HR can play a key role. So ultimately, what is it, sir? There are four kinds of people: people who watch things happening, people to whom things happen, people who do not know what's happening, but distinguished minority are those who makes things happen. If I want to conclude how to bring a transformation, change, and gain a competitive advantage, and how do you create a very agile workforce with a inclusive and collaborative culture with great leadership, it's important that HR has to realize and do that work with a collaborative spirit, not only with the CEO but other key stakeholders, both internal and external stakeholders. Thank you.
So I'll have two quick questions, Siddharth, for you. We spoke about agility and resilience and sustainability. So when we talk about organizational agility and sustainability of the organizations, at times, most of the organizations, not the ones who have existed for a longer period of time, we have seen a lot of organizations in past 10, 15 years to come and just perish. And they are driven by profit maximization formula. And but the profit maximization has a impact on large number of people. At times that there is a talent requirement, so we are hiring big time, and suddenly when the profits dip or there are certain other reasons, we have mass layoffs happening. So in your opinion, while we try to build a great organization, it has to be people driven in all the things that you spoke about. But what will be the trend like in future? Will these organizations will be sustainable, or it will be just profit maximization thing and they'll go off? And we are seeing a lot of them happening now.
It's a great question, Mr. Razvi. I see, what I've experienced and what I'm observing in the last few months, even if you take it.
Yes.
You have seen we have established many unicorns, many startups, and as you said, some of them have survived, could not survive beyond a particular point of time. I presume, based on what my experience and data and my consultancy role, I think what I've been saying is when you don't have a medium and a long-term strategy, it's only a very short-term purpose. I think what I call how do you start a company? It's a valuation game, which is more important rather than making developing a business on a sustainable basis in a medium term. This is one. Those those things have to be relooked. I mean, entrepreneur skills have been misunderstood by large people. He said he's making a quick money, some most of them, or oh, somebody succeeded, why can't I succeed? Some of them could not even earn profits. I'm not advocating profits are not important. Profits are important to sustain to grow and sustain the business. But some of the startups or unicorns, so-called, they failed it because the focus was not on people and the culture. The focus was how to make money, adopt all the shortcuts. When I said agility hacks also speaks about how do you break certain mindset challenges and work smarter. But it doesn't mean that you are totally disrupting the systems which are in place, which have been proved to be successful. So when you focus on people and culture, and when you drive the business with purpose, the purpose is not just profits alone. Profits with purpose, then those organizations can stand for longer. And I may also add, you see, it is not only the startups and the small organizations which are facing this challenge. Even if you see it in today's world, without naming anyone, the top guns in the industry globally, you are seeing every day, you are seeing their massive layoffs. You see, here I just want to say there must be compelling reason for them to do it. This would have been the last resort for those organizations who are well established, who are in terms of their financial health excellent, but still they're adopting because they're saying in future they may face certain roadblocks. I think let us take proactively, and with a proper communication, you need to move forward. Here, I just want to dispel one misconception or a myth people have. Laying off people, when there is justified to do those economic or other reasons, is should not be seen. This company is cruel. They don't have a human touch. I think if you really want to make other employees to survive, if you have 150,000, I mean, laying off 10 to the cost of 140 is much better. Like in older days, just carrying on a paternalistic approach, and then the whole organization collapse. You've seen what happened to In Search of Excellence. You see how many companies survive. Either company who want to say sustainable, growth oriented, and a medium and long term wants to be again a competitive advantage, they have to take. As long as they are humane in their approach, this is where high tech and high touch challenges. It doesn't mean that they are cruel. This is where there is a rigor of discipline and system thinking based on certain rationale. But how do you treat those people whom you want to uh, make redundant? That is where the culture and the leadership organization can play a role. Nobody would agree that, when he is asked to be made redundant, that he will be happy. But how you treat them at that time, these organizations have got the ability to treat them and explain the rationale and try to resolve it to a best. This is where I call CHRO plays an important role, what I call the high resolutions. Because you understand the business situation, you understand the people situation. So tough love, you have to take a tough decision, but love is this softer side. How do you deal with it and handle it? Sorry for the long answer.
No, that's very important that we hear the entire thing in totality and understand it better. You also spoke about globalization of
Yeah.
businesses, and there are no boundaries as such; they are just the political boundaries.
Yeah.
So that is again happening across, and in that tech has started playing a major role in connecting the organizations and keeping them together. Now, one quick thing that we'd like to know is when you're looking at a global organization, and most of the people have never met in their lives, and probably they'll not meet. So, and they are working together on multiple things, and HR plays an important role keeping them together. So there is a lot of discrepancy in terms of work culture and maybe the remunerations which are at place in different geo locations. So how does that the communication between the employees and people, which is happening on constant basis? So how do we control the discrepancies and uh,
And
keep the
you
yeah.
you raised a very valid concern, sir. Okay, I'll just very quickly split into two. What was happening earlier and what is happening today. I think this perhaps certain the disruptions which happen, including pandemic, has made it more going for the virtual or online or what we are doing today, Zooms and many other things. But this was not something very new. But only thing is the frequency has increased, and we are doing more in this. Definitely there need to be a connect and touch wherever is feasible. But in now the organizations have spread across many countries, 100 countries. It may not be possible, but given the context and the limitations, the best way perhaps to do it, it is what is it, I have experienced it, so I want to change it. I want to express it. When we were sending many people on secondment, say at that time 20 from Indian organized 25, what is the first thing they've said? It We feel lost connect with our folks into home country. We lost connect, or we don't know what's happening when people are not communicating to us effectively. So can you believe in those days I used to, it is not just ticking the box. I used to have a roster for myself. And I used to connect with all my people at different places. That is one. And the second one, yeah, no, I used to share the information. Maybe the global organization may not be telling to everyone because of lack of facilities at the time in terms of technology and the reach. But I used to inform. But can you believe, Ms. Resby, this has played in a very important role when there was a global conference, and people have said in some of the countries in which people come, they are very well connected. They know what's happening. You know, this can be achieved to a large extent. There's nothing like a physical meeting or face-to-face meetings. But if it's not happening to a large extent, it may not be 100% satisfy the people. But to a large extent, is do you do you do you encourage that sort of a connect? It's not only me with the others, but along with the teams. That is why, if you said, in today's world, one of the key competencies of the HR is how do you connect and collaborate with people. It's not just the HR, it is not a function, it's not Indian. But with, you are running a global organization sitting in Tumbatur or Gurgaon or Noida, but how do you connect with the people? They should not feel they lost touch. That touch bit, if you can't give physically, at least with a little bit sustained efforts in a very systemic thinking. I know one of the competencies identified today is systemic thinking by the HR. What is systemic thinking? How do you plan to connect, collaborate, network with different and make them to work, they talk to each other, if not physical through a physical intervention, but at least by through face by through a technology. So if you make that, they feel that we are part of the team. That inclusiveness needs to be built in. They should feel about it that this organization, despite many constraints, are able to connect with each other to bring that collaborative spirit. I think if I know you, my approach would be very different. Even if I don't know you and if you're meeting for the first time, I think that HR and the leadership. It's not just HR. The leadership has to work together to make that happen.
Thank you, sir. The other part that I wanted to ask you was the discrepancy in the remunerations of people in different geolocations. So it at times raises concerns, and amongst the performers in the organization, that why this discrepancy exists. So how can HR tackle that as well?
Um, It's a great question. It's unfortunately walk the talk. Does it happen? It's very easy to say, Mr. Rizvi, we believe in performance-based outcomes. Rewards will be based on performance. And secondly, we are fair and equitable. We have this approach of deciding objectively. There is a process. Despite all this process, meritocracy plays an important role. Despite all this process, I would say, this is universally applicable and continue to do it. You have a systems, you have analysis, you have the data, you have reviews, you have proper counseling meetings, feedback has been given. But despite that, the one challenge we have, especially on people practices, is you can be objective to a 90%. You eliminate subjectivity to a large extent. Let me put it the other way. But there is a people's judgment. When Mr. Razvi is deciding the reward to Dwarkanath, but he may have his own, this fellow is not a team player, or some perceptions. It's a judgment call. You may be based on your decision may be right, but it's not sometimes seen it because he said there is a discrepancy. I can tell you only one thing: you can never satisfy 100%. If I say I given you a good reward and I go out of your room thanking you profusely, then I realize my colleague has got slightly better reward than me. All my happiness will go for a 6, despite following the process. This is where you have to keep on communicating, but practice, walk the talk. But in case of people process, there is always an element of subjectivity, which may be 10%, regardless of best. That subjectivity sometimes can lead to some sort of a grievance or a challenge.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It was wonderful listening to your talk and the answers for the questions that we had. It's always an honor to have you on show with us. And we are promoting it as HR Voices, and we welcome you to be on the show as often as possible.
Likewise, sir. I have a huge respect to Businessworld and to you and to Dr. Batra and others. And I really enjoyed it. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.